Facebook's find these types of questions featuring in other kinds of PM interviews as well. So we'll cover first two of those, which is product sense, which is kind of a mixture of products design plus strategy, has a good angle of that. Um, and then we'll do a product execution. I'm Sachin. I'm a current senior PM at Book My Show. I've been working here just a little under 2 years. In my most recent role, I'm building the retention slash growth charter at Book My Show at overall Book My Show level. Prior to that, at Book My Show, I've built and scaled the discovery platform. I also kind of look at customer support and search products here at Book My Show. Prior to that, worked with Barnes& and Noble and kind of helped them build a student retention analytics product. And prior to that, I did my MBA after 6 years in being of 6 years of being a developer and a technology consultant. So yeah, that's about me.
My name is Asim. I recently graduated in 2020 from IIT Kanpur as a mechanical engineer and have joined the APM program at Flipkart since last August. And I have been doing my first stint in the ads team. So basically, part of the ads team building insights product for all the brands that use Flipkart as an advertisement platform.
Good to know. Good to know. All right. So yeah, I think let's begin with the first question. You've got a pen and paper so that you can scribble around.
Yeah.
I'm guessing. Okay. All right. So the first question will be, as I said, will be a product sense question, and the question is basically, or rather, the prompt is kind of build a transport solution for the blind people using our autonomous fleet.
Okay. So just to repeat, we have to envision a transport service using an autonomous fleet, and by that time I'm assuming something around self-driving cars, driverless vehicles, and thus user segment that we are targeting is like the blind or the visually impaired population.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Before we move on ahead, I have a few clarifying questions. So basically, what are we? Are we like a kind of a service aggregate, like cab aggregator or a service provider, or are we the company who made the automatic fleet or the self-driving cars?
The first one.
Okay, so we are in the ownership is on us to like envision the whole end-to-end experience for the users. And I can assume that the part of designing the self-driving cars, that part is like out of like our bounds. To clarify, are we envisioning self-driving cars or like self-driving public vehicles like buses or other things as well, or private vehicles?
So right now it's just about cars, and we'll see how that goes on from there.
Okay, so the situation that I'm getting is that uh, there are no solutions as of now for transport services that involves automatic fleets or automatic
Right.
driverless vehicles. And we will be the first to bring this solution to the people, and the population that we want to start is with our people who are like, visually impaired.
Yeah.
Our primary goal will be to get this feature adopted. So our adoption will be the major goal, and then like at the moment, is that assumption correct?
Yeah, I think that we should start there and also keep an eye on. We're also building a new business. So, what are other things that are important for that to succeed? So, keep an eye on that as well.
I think, and then one like any particular geography you have in mind, like India or everywhere. What is our like starting location? Anything that we have planned?
I will choose one that you're most familiar with.
Let's go ahead with India then. Fixed timelines as to when we want to launch it.
Probably a quarter is what we're looking at. Time is kind of a relatively fixed dimension here.
Okay. So I'll maybe take a minute or two and to structure my thoughts, and then we can proceed. How I am structuring this is, first, let's look at the user, like the complete part of the journey end to end, and see what can be the possible problems that the user might face, or the stakeholders might face. And then after like noting all the pain points, we can see how we can solve the major pain points, and if needed, try to prioritize if we have multiple solutions for a pain point. After doing that, let's quickly go into what can be the success metrics of this feature or this product that or this service that we are solving. The user journey. I'll take reference from the existing user flows on how you hail a private cab, right? And then we can see how can we envision it for a visually impaired people. So I've divided the complete journey into three parts, which is the pre-journey where you like book and hail the cab. Then we have the in-journey. So while you are in transit and going in the cab, and then finally you have the post-journey, which will have like the payment process and completion of the ride. The major processes that you have to do like before hailing the cab is input your destination and your current location. In a typical pre-journey is like entering your destination and your current location, and after getting your ride booked, getting a confirmation that your ride is booked, and after the ride arrives, you have to authenticate in some way that this is the correct ride or this is the car that is meant for your journey.
Mhm.
Then while during the journey, so while you have authenticated this is your ride, you are traveling in the car, and this is like fairly simple process, but we should consider cases like breakdowns or any cases of emergency, because this is like safety purpose, which we should definitely keep in mind. And then post journey will involve like payment option and completing your ride. So in here we are targeting the visually impaired, so if we can assist them in some sort of like give them feedback that they have reached there and this is the location that they are in, and possibly if there is someone to receive them as well, so if we can authenticate that, that is the format, that is the structure that I'm following: pre-journey, in-journey, and post-journey. Okay. By the way, I think I should have pointed this out before, but
Mhm.
since it's in mine, I would like to point it out. So there can be visually impaired can have like multiple cases, like visually impaired and assisted by someone, and then visually impaired people who are independent, so uh, they are completing the process by their own. So by default, I will be solving the cases of independent visually impaired people with no assistance, because I think the existing solutions can compromise for people who have assistance with them. Is that a fair assumption? So, okay, let's start with the pre-journey part of it and see what kind of points and then we do from it. So you typically, I would imagine the hailing part of it or booking a cab service for it would be done by an app. Visually impaired can fairly competently manage their phones with all dictation apps and accessibility features that these new smartphones have. So I am not considering any like new feature. It's just that our app or the service that will medium through which we will be providing our service should be able to should be compatible with the accessibility features that are given on the phone, right? So that is what we need to make sure. And then by dictation or by voice typing or by touch typing, they can enter the desired destination or and their current location. And I think these are the major two things that you need to do. Like signing up will be the same process as these people can do. So the next thing that we will be going on to is the authentication part of it. So like in Ola, we see that you have to provide a passport to the driver to authenticate that this is your ride. So
Mhm.
similarly, in a way, maybe when your ride arrives, so we should give a notification to the user that your ride is nearby, and when it has arrived on the phone via maybe a voice message. And then similarly, you can hear a passcode on your mobile phone that this is your passcode, and then the cars itself can have a like small speaker outside the vehicle. When you are approaching it, it should speak out the code that you received on your app beforehand, so that you can authenticate that this is the right drive for you, or is it not someone else's drive. So I would just like to check in, are there any questions for me or anything that you would like me to clarify here?
No, I think once you're done, maybe just summarize the problem that, because we're right now kind of detailing out the problems, right? So just summarize the problems that you have kind of picked out?
So yeah, the hailing and then authentication is done. Now we will be moving on to the in-journey process. So in the like during the in-journey process, the rider will be seated inside the car. And usually, what I look out for in driving experiences, that I am aware of where I am and maybe which direction I'm going, or what which lane, or sorry, which route are we taking to the destination location. So maybe instead of like playing some music, we can give them like 5 minute updates on where they are in their location. In case of a breakdown, which is our major use case in the during the in-journey part, I think we can the car should be able to contact their like service immediate emergency services, and the users apps should also trigger a call to their emergency number, like which they will have pre-filled in case of any breakdown on emergencies, or if the car feels that they are blocked or there is no route ahead based on the map route that it is following. And then this is the in journey part of it. And then lastly, post journey, it will involve payment. I think it will be straightforward. The existing capabilities can allow for payment. They can have a like pre-filled wallet, and the amount gets deducted upon their confirmation that the ride has reached the destination. Maybe the speaker inside the car can give them the trigger that we have reached the destination and this is where we are currently. Possibly, usually in cases where the rider needs assistance in from navigating out of the car, maybe the same authentication process that we used to authenticate the rider and the car can be used to authenticate a receiver that you are getting, maybe to take you out of the ride and guide you after that right side. So that is also the some thought process that I'm thinking into. But yeah, this is all that I have could think of in the pre-journey, in-journey, and post-journey structure. Any use case that you would like me to cover, or anything that I have missed in this journey?
So I'd like to think about. I'd like you to think about more during the handoff that happens between pre-journey to during the journey. What all other problems may come up, considering the context and the discussion that we're having and the user types we have. Are there any other challenges that you see that maybe?
Okay. So, like between pre-journey and in-journey. So, okay, let me drill down a bit. Let's say you are sitting at your home and you have called the cab at your home. Now there will be still some distance to travel between where you are at the moment and where the car has arrived. So maybe the app can like locate where the car exactly is and give you step-by-step navigation to how to where in which direction to reach when you have stepped out of the house till you reach the car.
Okay.
Where is it parked exactly? Now the solutions okay, maybe I should just recap the solutions. For hailing the cab, the dictation system or the accessibility features on the phone will be more than enough for interacting with the app. For authenticating, we have established a like password based system for authenticating the driver and the rider interaction. During the in journey, I think the traveling part of it is fairly obvious, like fairly simple. The major things that we have devised here are like constantly updating the rider on their position and the route they are taking, and in case of any breakdown, an emergency call should be triggered to the service provider's emergency station and the rider's emergency contact. And then post journey, the payment part of it will be done by a wallet or whatever the rider is comfortable with. I don't think we should go for a cash based, because then you will have to install a like hardware inside the car. I think for a user that we are targeting, I think they should be fairly acquainted with the like mobile or and these apps. So I am assuming that the wallet can suffice the target segment that we are wallet or any online transaction based service. And then also a feature in case that the rider is expecting a receiver for them. So to authenticate that no other person received the rider, just the intended receiver. receives the right. In terms of, I think I would have liked to prioritize the solutions that we have envisioned for the complete journey. But I think the solutions that I have mentioned are fairly important in terms of the rider safety, and I think each of them will be the least possible thing that will be absolutely necessary for this complete ride system to work. So I think each of the solutions that I have mentioned will be fairly important. In terms of some like moonshot features, we can have other things like maybe guiding the rider when they have completed the journey on where they wanted to go and how far it is from now, or maybe some like touch-based authentication system which they will collect from the app to authenticate the rider. These kind of thing can be some moonshot solutions that will involve hardware and software updates. But apart from that, the solutions that I previously mentioned should at least be present to complete this journey. I would like to begin with thinking about what kind of metrics can we look into while providing this service, right? So first of all, since this is a like very new service, I would my primary objective will be to increase adoption, right? So the number of users who have come onto the platform will be the first, I think, the top of the funnel thing, who have like maybe a number of app installs or number of signups, and then definitely one of our key objectives will be the number of rides completed, let's say in a month, because so this typically what we will do is we will use like data analytics to figure out what is the frequency at which these drivers use this service. But let's say for the sake of this interview, let's assume that a monthly rides completed can be a good feature. And then we will have like our usual I think one thing for like feedback can be in our NPS metrics. So based on the star rating system that we can give to the rider, uh, can be one more thing. But yeah, I think this should be our primary metrics that we should keep an eye on.
Okay, fair enough. So you're saying NPS, monthly rides completed, and signups. In terms of feedback, right, Asim, you did reasonably well, to be honest. Considering where you are in your product management journey, you're fresh out of college, just 1 year into product management, so it was reasonably well crafted response. So I'm glad to see that. Now, the feedback that I have is mainly a function of me having thought this maybe a few times more than you, or me kind of receiving or like hearing what you have to say and then having enough time to think about that, right? So take should be taken in a manner that maybe your answer is right now 3 4 star right now, right? So think of the feedback that I give as adding stars to that. Maybe right, you add a couple more points, it will make it a 3 star to a 4 star, a 5 star to 7 star. So coming back to the actual feedback, right? Overall, on a broader, from a structural point of view, I think you started with kind of clarifying the question. Then I see you kind of spoke about the user a bit, and then jumped into the journey, then came on to figuring out the problem solutions and metrics, right? I think in terms of broader structure, I think it was fairly okay. What I would just add in there is once you started with clarifying questions, right? I think like if you just search enough for these product sense questions, there's a standard structure that more often than not gets recommended. So in that, one of the things that I see missing is the user segmentation part, right? So when you are talking about when you've moved from say clarifying the question to users, um, you did you didn't spend enough time. Maybe we could have spent enough time on the users, right? Like, so as you kind of mentioned later, right, there can be different levels of blind folks as well. So there is one partially blind, there's a also a kind of a complete blind. Which kind of audience
Mhm.
are we picking kind of dictates the solutions that we'll have later, right, or the problems that they will face. So
Makes sense.
that kind of, right. So even again, standard segmentations around age, like older blind folks may not be that tech savvy. So like bringing these things into discussions just um, makes it more comprehensive, that you're thinking from all the angles, right? Also, when you kind of clarified the question, it was good that you had some good questions out there. Maybe once after that initial part is clear, um, maybe maybe I've seen a few candidates do this. That's why I'm giving the feedback, which comes out pretty nicely, in the sense that you, with the additional information that you've got through the questions, maybe you could rephrase that, hey, we are kind of, here is our goal, here is what we are set out to build, right? So that's one part.
To kind of
Then
summarize from all the inputs,
absolutely right.
right?
So yeah, so if we spoke about partially and completely blind, so maybe add that to that, right? So maybe and it was a pretty broad question, to be honest, and more often than not, all product size questions will be broad. So part of the challenge is bringing that amorphous problem to, say, maybe something that's kind of solvable, or discuss or something that could be discussed in 30-35 minutes, right? So that summarization helps. So once after that, I think you move to the user journey part. That's okay. That's always helps. Once you get into the user journey, right, I think that's when you kind of start to figure out what kind of possible challenges that may come in, right? I think you kind of to begin with, you kind of had problems and solutions almost, right? So I think while you were answering this or thinking about it, normally I think what I'd recommend you do that what I'd recommend you do is, once you've kind of figured out the user type that you are going to focus on, I always recommend that you kind of choose one, or throughout this interview, right? Like, one thing is pretty common, that you should uh, cover the breadth first, right? Like if you're talking about user types, cover the entire breadth of users, and then pick one and go into depth. So breadth first and then depth, right? So I think in that same sense, right, once you figure out the user, or kind of zero in on a user type, then just like what you did, you just like what you did, right, which is going through the journey, which was pretty nice. Like all the three steps coming into that. Now think of that user and see what kind of problems he might face, right? I think when you're answering problems and solutions came at the same time, right? I'd much rather have you first collate all the problems, right? Like if the time is not enough, maybe just focus on one of these, right? There were three parts to this journey, right? Pre-journey, during the cab journey, and post-journey, right? Maybe just pick up one and then talk about, or kind of list down problems in all of these, and then pick one problem that you would like to solve, right? And because it's blind folks and all of that, the accessibility problem does come in almost every time, right? Um, Now, what I was so one of the things that I think is, the autonomous fleet is still a new concept, right? Which means you are not used to that kind of mode of travel, which means you might, as a user, you might have trust and safety issues as well, right? Because you're used to kind of a guy coming, talking to you, bhaiya main chhod dunga, and all of this stuff, greeting you, all of that, right? So that trust and safety part comes in with autonomous vehicles, or autonomous, because this is pretty new, right? It's not standard yet. So zeroing on the users, right? So once, then after you kind of, you're just kind of looking at problems. So then accessibility is one problem, trust and safety is another problem. Then there is a payments problem as well, in the three journeys that we mentioned. There are again small little, like it was great to see you thinking about the breakdowns happening, which is pretty likely, right? The guy is blind, even there's no driver as well. So how will he get help? So some of those things, right? The more such things you bring into the conversation, the better off you will be. Or as I said, it will have more such stars, right? How will the guy identify it's his car? All of those get into all of those problems. Or you are kind of once you sit down in a car, you are used to kind of tell the driver, yeah, I'm ready, let's move on. How will those things happen
Mhm.
in this journey, right? So we don't have to solve for all of these things, but as a P product manager, your job is to kind of identify all the problems, by empathizing with the user, right? And that, the more such things that you bring up in the conversation, as I said, more stars get added, to the answer. It just kind of makes a 5-star answer into a 7, 8-star answer. Apart from that, I think, when you were answering the moonshot solution, right? One of the things is, as I said, there's a kind of like maybe you could follow all of these frameworks to structure your thoughts, but I would advise not using these words, right? Moonshot solution.
Oh,
Don't ever
okay.
use it. As in, think think subconsciously, and when you're like kind of, um, um, again, the while you're kind of, say, imagine that you kind of explained all these are all the problems that one might face, and then you pick the pre-journey part to solve. While you're solving for that, there can be many different kinds of solutions. One that just works okay, one that is absolutely brilliant, one that is like a close to a moonshot, right? Let the interviewer know through your solutions that it's a moonshot, right? Because some interviewers uh, might not like, um, these kind of things coming up, right? So, but it's at
Okay.
least good that you thought from that angle. Coming back to the later part of this, which was kind of wherein you spoke about metrics, right? I think, even there, I think, uh, one good thing that you did, or kind of main thing that I was looking forward to was whether are your metrics aligned to the goals, because metrics, the kind of, you can track anything or everything under the
Mhm.
sun, right? So, but what to track is a function of your goals. And in this case, it was nice to see that you had, you kind of kept in mind your, um, launch goals, which was adoption and sustainable business, right? So, at least you thought about or brought up that was good. Um, in terms of metrics, there could be different ways to look at it, right?
Mhm.
In the sense that, you did mention about the signups and all of that. How many users are we acquiring? You did say that monthly rides completed, all of that, right? Also, kind of look at how uh, is retention a problem? More like some of these things would, because when you're looking at, this is the new business. One of the things that we mentioned early in the conversation was it's a new business we are launching. So it got to be, sustainable, in order to kind of scale, right? So how will you judge that part, right? So, and there's no kind of standard answer to these things, but, what does a product market fit look for you, right?
Mhm.
Maybe it's more users signing up, or kind of users who have signed up coming back more frequently, right? So yeah, I think, think about those, and the end metrics that you kind of state in the interviews. I I don't I don't generally care too much about that, but as long as I'm getting these things, or you're keeping these things in mind, I think that's much more important. Um, Even at the beginning itself, right? What does the supply side look like? Are we owning these fleet? Are we partnering with these fleet? Each of this has an implication, right? So if you're partnering, your value is discovery, right? For the user, as a business, you're only bringing that part, right? Which also has a
Right.
bearing on your problem and solution, right? Yeah, I think, maybe, because we started out saying long term, kind of build a transport solution. Transport solution can be a short term, long term. What you could do is, again, to make these, make again add more star, as I was saying. Um, just say, when you're kind of in the initial phases, you talk about that. I think, okay, maybe, there can be a short term or long term, but considering that we are building a new business, I see that short term travel has much more, um, has a higher frequency, right? Long term, can be like once in a weekend or something like that. So if you just consider a professional guy who is kind of just
Mhm.
commuting, or kind of, for work, or a student, or it depends on the user segment that you are kind of picking up. But the point is, it could be short term, long term as well. And basis that, your solution, your problem points will vary. Yeah, it's one of the things is it's such a big problem that you can't do justice to in the amount of time that is given. So whatever points you're talking, ensure that those are complete.